There is power in personal stories. It connects us, it empowers us, and it holds us accountable. It creates understanding and expands our perspective. This is Big in the Community with Jonathan James at the Kalamazoo Promise, a podcast aimed to highlight local leaders, collaborators, and innovators in the greater Kalamazoo community. In this episode, I sit down with Dr. Regena Nelson, who spent over 25 years shaping early childhood education and equity initiatives in Kalamazoo. All right, welcome back to Big in the Community. I'm going to start us off with a quote. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. That's William Butler Yeats. I don't know if that's how you say the last name right. But anyway, we have an amazing guest here. Dr. Regena F. Nelson, Professor Emeritus at Western Michigan University. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Nelson, you've spent more than 25 years shaping early childhood education and equity initiatives in Kalamazoo and beyond. So before we get into this, how would you introduce the heart of your work to someone, who's meeting you for the first time?
Good question. So I know my work has always been about education and equity, but specifically I focused on young children, so children birth through 5 is early childhood, and increasing access to high quality learning experiences for everyone. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what initially drew you to early childhood education?
Yeah, so my path was a little different than typical educators. So as an undergrad, I studied psychology and political science. I always knew I wanted to be a college professor and I was going to teach psychology. I was going to be in a psychology department. And at first I thought, motivation seems very interesting and that's what I want to study and teach. And then I had an internship, probably my second year in college, where I was working with young children. We had a campus center for preschool, but it had a special population of young children who had emotional impairments. And so during my internship, I started to bond with these little ones, 3-year-olds, and it just clicked. I instinctually know how to connect to them. I found my thing. This is the group that I want to work with. And we had to just support them, learning social skills and help them. They needed more one-on-one. They couldn't be in a traditional classroom without that support. So I had a couple students that I focused on when I came in for my internship each day. And particularly there was one little boy who I really connected with. And they said one day, I wasn't there every day as interns, you have other classes to take. And he was having a rough day. And when I came back, they were like, yeah, he had a really rough day. We were all trying to talk him down. And he was just really upset. He felt like no one cared for him. And he said, except Regena. And when I heard that, I was like, I'm making a difference. This is exactly what I want to do with my life. So from there, when I said, okay, now I'm going to graduate school, what area of psychology do I want to focus on? And I thought, I want to apply my psychological background to education. This is exactly what I want to do, making sure that all children have high quality learning experiences. So now I need to add the education piece. And I was fortunate that there were graduate programs where I could add the education piece and go deeper in psychology. And that led me to the PhD program at the University of Michigan. And they had a program called Combined Program in Education and Psychology. And I applied and I got a fellowship where they paid for the whole thing. So that was a blessing. Wow. And my journey began. I just started to study children and spend more time in preschools while I was there because U of M had more than one campus childcare center, as you can imagine. And then I was also able to do research in kindergarten classrooms.
Wow, that's awesome. It's always fascinating to hear kind of an epiphany moment where people are like, oh, this confirms this is what I should be doing. This is a side question. Mm-hmm. Did you ever have any moments where you thought, like where you had a moment like that, but it didn't confirm, like you thought you'd go in a different direction, or was it always like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be?
I feel like I am one of those outliers because I knew sort of big picture the path that I wanted to be on. And I just sort of trusted that. And I would get signs like, yep, you're on the right path. You're on the right path. Not to say that there weren't naysayers, because even now, if you tell people that you're majoring in psychology, they think that's a joke major. You know, like, that's just an easy major for someone who doesn't know what they want to do. You can't get a job with just a psychology bachelor's degree. So, you know, I had to fight some of that negativity along the way, but I never wavered. Like I knew, like, this is what I'm supposed to do. It'll all work out. Yeah.
That's awesome. I was thinking I might go into counseling psychology for a little bit when I was like thinking about what I wanted to do for graduate school. And I was trying to like reach out for like, you know, the counseling office. I was like, hey, who do I talk to figure out what I want to do? And they're like, well, we don't really do advising for graduate school. Like usually people know what they want to go into. But I had that idea. I'll just share this little side story. At Bronson, I was working as like a patient sitter for a little short stint when I was looking into different jobs and going to school. And there was a moment where I was in a patient's room in the ER, and they had come in. They had, you know, suicidal thoughts, kind of acted on it a little bit. And it was what you would think would be a very awkward situation where you wouldn't know what to say, what to do. And I just listened and like talked, you know, from my experience or like different things. And we kind of had this connection. And for a moment I thought, oh, this is my epiphany moment. I'm supposed to be doing this. Because I had left for like a break or my lunch break or something. And I came back and, I think the social worker was like, I don't know what you did or said, but they're fine. They ended up going home, yada, yada, yada. I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is it. And then I got to counseling psychology, actually took like 2 classes. First one was great. Second one, realized the research wasn't for me. So it did tell me like, I do want to help people. And that is something that I'm passionate about, but maybe that's not the route for it. So anyway, I just wanted to share that.
No, yeah. And I think that's helpful to young people who like, okay, I have this broad interest, but there's so many ways that you can go within that broader interest. So yeah, and you have to just try things to see if it's a good fit.
Yeah. So you've had different leadership roles at Western Michigan, including department chair, director of the Center for Community Engagement. How did those different roles deepen your connection to the community?
Wow. So I was a professor at Western for, about 14 years before I was tapped on the shoulder to become department chair. And I was never interested in becoming a college administrator. I love just teaching, doing my research. We call it service when you volunteer for different, you know, projects in the community that are in your expertise area. So I had this perfect balance of that. And, you know, I was a young mom raising my kids. They were probably only like 5 and 7 at the time. And we had a department chair who had to step down. And they said, we're going to choose somebody on the faculty to be interim. So be careful if anybody ever taps you on the shoulder to be interim. And my dean said at the time, we had all these meetings with everyone and your name came up and I agree that you would be a good interim. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't like telling people what to do. I really like being independent and doing my own work. And so I said, I'll do it for 1 year because I want to help the department and as we find a permanent person. So I became the department chair. So then when I became the department chair for 1 year, things were going well and they asked me to stay on. So I ended up being in that role you did 1 term, that's 4 years, and I did a second term for another 4 years, for 9 years. And so during that time, all of the issues come to you as the department chair. So if there's a student in the field who's having problems at one of his placements, the school is calling you to figure out how to solve this problem. And so that was where it got real with the community. I started to hear from the local school districts about, well, your students aren't, meeting our expectations for this. What is your program doing about that? Mm-hmm. And so I had to brainstorm with the community on, okay, if they're not getting enough experience in the community before we drop them in school so they understand the context of schools, well, how can we change our curriculum to do that? Mm. So that's where I had to interact with more community partners in that role to make sure our students were meeting those expectations. And so that role did help a lot with networking in the community. And also with preschools, too, because that's where my students were placed as a professor. I know almost every preschool in the county because we had so many students and we needed so many placements. And so that was also deep in my community engagement, too. And the same thing happened when I saw the placements for my students, like, whoa, my students have more experience than some of the teachers in these preschools. This is a problem. Yeah. So how do we help these preschools improve on their quality? And so initiatives came out of that. I would go back to the table and say, what do y'all need help with and how can the university support that? So my community engagement has always been sort of organic, the community saying, we have this problem or we see this problem. How can we work together to solve it?
That's so good. I mean, I don't know. I think from what I've seen is so many times like the education or the teaching for like, especially early childhood, is kind of just like yeah, that's nice. Not as important, not like the first focus that people think when they talk about education.
Right.
And getting them ready.
Exactly. And that's what our field has always struggled with, that people see it as just babysitting. It's just childcare. But, now we know about the first 5 years of life and brain development are the most important years. So you want the most qualified, most attentive, supportive caregivers at that time. So to make sure that the children are prepared when they start school. Yeah.
I think about like all the different things that like my mom did growing up and then seeing her with, my kids now. And then my wife, my mother-in-law, I can't say mother-in-law. She gets upset if I say that. She works for GRPS and she's like been an educator for, I don't know, like since she's been in the workforce. But the way that she approaches, teaching her grandchildren is just, it blows my mind because I wouldn't know how to do the things that she does. And, then I'll be reading to him, I'll be reading a story and then he will just look at the words and be like, oh, that's ROS. I'm like, when did you start to learn letters? Like what happened? And it's from like those moments where like, they go with grandma for the day or she comes visits and does some stories and whatnot and does those little like teaching techniques that I have no idea how to do. And that kind of like, I want to say like that catapults like his education moving forward. He's going to be ready when he goes to school. So I see the value in it. Exactly. And they're so curious at this time. And that's why I love that age group because, the questions they ask you, to me, a lot of them are humorous because it tells you how they see the world and it opens the door to try to have these conversations with them to go deeper to what they're saying to understand this. And I think that's just fascinating. Like who wouldn't want to do that all day as an early childhood educator? Yeah. So the Urban Teacher Residency Program. So you led and it brought millions in funding to prepare culturally, competent, trauma-informed urban educators. What makes that program unique and what impact have you seen so far? Wow. So this happened, this program, I've been working with Kalamazoo Public Schools, as when I was a department chair for 2 years, and they were saying, Western's not producing enough teachers through your undergraduate pipeline to fill all of our needs. So how can we think about another pipeline of teachers? We think that we have a lot of staff here who would be great teachers. They're invested in the community. They know our kids, but they don't have a teaching certificate.
And so they will be teaching assistants instead of the teacher of record in the classroom. But they have aspirations to do that. Your program right now does not meet their needs. It would mean that they'd have to quit their job working in Kalamazoo Public Schools, go through a year program that's set up for undergrads. It takes 3 years plus. During that time, they're not earning an income, and it's just too long. Your classes are during the day. They have families and all these things. So it's not a good match for us. What can you do to adjust that? So we came to the table together to think about ways of doing that. And the Michigan Department of Education said, we can set up an expedited program. If these teachers or your staff have bachelor's degrees, they can do a master's to get their certification and do it in 1 year. And they can stay in the classroom if you want to design it that way with online coursework. I'm like, that's easy. So we got that program approved. The next step was there was a financial barrier. So they could still work and pay their bills, but to pay for the courses to get a master's degree, each master's class is about $2,500 at Western. It's very expensive, and you would have to take 12 classes, so you can do the math. So we're talking at least $24,000 to $28,000 per person. Taking out loans, that's not going to help them financially. So that's when the federal funding became available to us. We saw the grant, and we were ready. And sometimes that doesn't happen because your grants will say you need to have partners, you need to have this in place. But because we had been at the table for 2 years, all those things were already in place. We had the curriculum, we had the partnerships. We just needed to figure out the budget and submit it. These grants are very competitive, and I heard from everybody, you usually don't get it the first time you apply. So we didn't get our hopes up. We found out we got it. It was like, oh my gosh, now it's go time. Let's get the staff in place and get this program going. And it was so exciting because I remember meeting with the staff at Kalamazoo Public Schools to say, if it's the ones who are interested, we have this program. We need people to be in their first cohort. If you're ready, this is the process that you will do to submit your application. And I always tell people, when I came to that meeting, I felt like, Oprah, when she was like, everybody gets a car. Like, people were so excited. Like, are you for real? That, we're going to get paid and, we'll have this, our classes will be paid for, and, you'll have all this support. And people were so excited. It's like, so that is wonderful. Like, that was like the end of my career, the highlight of my career, to provide something like that. And our goal was 90 teachers. Benton Harbor Area Schools was also a partner to produce enough teachers, 90 teachers for the 2 districts. And we were successful. The program is now ended. 2025 was the end of the grant, and we have 87. And so, but the exciting thing is the retention rate for those teachers, because it's the first 3 years, or even when people get through a program and they have a job, they'll still say, ooh, this is not what I thought. I'm going to do something else. So we've had a very high retention rate. So it's been very exciting. And some of the students will tell me, particularly, we were looking for representation. So we wanted these new teachers to look like the students in the classroom, because that's important. And there were some, like, particularly the Black males, who told me, like, I didn't think there was anything specifically out there for me, and now you have this program, and I think, like, you designed it for me. I remember one of them said, I'm like, of course, if you want to believe that. In general, we did, but I'm glad it speaks to you. So, yeah, that's been great. And to go into schools, and even when I'm in the community, people will tell me about a new teacher, and it'll be one of the urban teachers. I'll say a name right now, not to point, like Seth Jackson. Somebody will say, I know him. He's my, daughter's teacher, da-da-da-da-da. And just with so much pride, like, it's doing exactly what we wanted to do. And many times it doesn't happen, but it did.
That's so awesome. We got to take some notes here at the Promise, because that retention rate's crazy. It's amazing. So you've also championed support for student parents at Western through significant grants. Why is supporting student parents such an important equity issue? Right.
So we had a campus child care center on campus for 0 to 5. And it was for students, low-cost childcare. So we know that students have kids. It's not like everybody's 18 right out of high school and that sort of thing. And that program will never make money, because what you have to charge the students and the parents to pay to run the program, it would be cost prohibitive. So Western was always subsidizing that program. Once again, we were able to get some funding to, close the gap. So we applied for a federal grant that's for campus childcare. Mm-hmm. And I think the federal government realizes how important it is that parents have this support. And so we received that, and that really helped us lower the cost of childcare to, it was like $1 an hour for parents on campus, student parents. And you could, if you only needed childcare Tuesdays and Thursdays because you had class from 10 to 2, we would, that would be fine. Most centers they can't operate like that. You have to be full time.
The whole week.
Yep, exactly. Paid, and if you don't show up just because you only need it 2 days a week, you're still paying for that. So that made a significant difference. And we do surveys to the parents to show that the funding's making a difference. Like, are you able to take, a full load of classes? Yes. I mean, are you able to do internships? Because beyond classes, your degree is one thing, but when you have that experience because of internships, that makes you more marketable. So they're able to do those things and, to make themselves marketable. So when they finish their degrees, they're able to get a good paying job and take care of their family. And that's been great. Or get tutoring so they're not failing classes. Yeah. And also, they're so tired. Sometimes just respite. I mean, just because if you have your kids in childcare, once you're done with class and you study, you just need a breather. Maybe get some chores done or just take a nap. And so that's going to make you a better student and a better parent. Yeah. So we were tracking all of that and making sure that they knew ways to support their children's development too. It's just juggling a lot of balls, being a parent, being a student, and they still have to work, many of them, because they have childcare expenses. So
when did this start, and is it still going on now?
It started, I think we got our first grant, I should remember, because I remember I was pregnant with my son. So it was back in 2001.
Okay.
We got the first grant, and we were able to be funded every 4 years. I think there was 1 4-year period. They gave it to somebody else, and then the next time we were able to get it. It's on pause right now. Okay. So our grant, this last one was 2021 to 2025, which ends, ironically, today, September 30th, wow. Right? But that funding, because of the, changes in Washington, we'll just leave it at that, is one of the things that's on pause. Okay. Yeah. So unfortunately, that funding's not there. And when we closed our campus childcare center for financial reasons, we still had the grants. So parents at Western would just choose a center in the community, and then we would be able to subsidize their payments for that. And that was really nice too.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I was one of those students who had a kid while trying to go to class. Luckily, I have family in town, and they pretty much watched them while I was in class, or if I had to study or anything else. I'm really grateful for that. But if I didn't have that, then I'd be at dropping my kid off at the center. But when you think about the future of teacher education, what role do anti-bias and anti-racist practices play in preparing the next generation of educators?
Yeah, it's huge because of the changing demographics of our population. That public schools will be mostly students of color. That's just this, fact. And like I said earlier, it matters when you have a teacher who understands your lived experience. So if the teacher is a teacher of color and they look like you, it's the lived experience that they've had to understand some things about, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, all those sorts of things. And that helps in the classroom when they want to motivate you to learn something new. They can pull an example that's relevant to your life instead of some of the stuff that's in the textbooks that's, I don't know what these things are. That's not what my life is like.
Never played pickleball.
Exactly. Some just things, whitewater rafting. I mean, this is like really bizarre things you'll see as examples in some of the curriculum materials. And a teacher can help translate that if they have that background. Given that the teaching population, it'll be a long time before it's fully representative of the students. We want to say that a white teacher could still do well in the classroom and with these students if they understand anti-racism and anti-bias. So they're not doing any unintentional harm by not recognizing the talents and the background of the children that are in their classroom. And that's what a lot of us experience. We may not know it because it was just the norm for us that we had to always adjust to the white middle class way of looking at things because that's how we were taught. But it really kind of puts you at a disadvantage because we had all this other knowledge that could have been built on and we could have done better in school if somebody, used that knowledge. So that's why it's so important that we're not leaving people behind. When we don't have that kind of knowledge and background.
Yeah. I mean, even in the workplace, like the same stuff comes up and then we will label it differently. Like, what are your strengths? Like as a team, what are your Clifton strengths? These are your strengths. And then there's trainings on how you work together as a team, but we don't necessarily invest that into, early education. What are the strengths of the children? How do they use those? So yeah, thank you for all this work. I saw your CV online and I was like, man, she's done a lot. Like very extensive. And I was just like, wow, I didn't even know this. Like we've collaborated on stuff before and I was like, you bring a lot to the table and it's clear like why all these different things were successful. Cause you put in the work and you have experience and, you bring your expertise to that. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So with that, you served on numerous boards, YWCA, KC Ready For's, Isaac, and some others. How have these community connections shaped your work and helped bridge the gap between academia and real world impact?
So like as a university professor, part of it is that my research has to inform what I'm teaching. So I have to be aware of all the latest changes that are going on in the field to make sure my students are, practicing, the state of the art. So with my research, I'm always studying classrooms and seeing what the issues are and how can we make things better. And then when I talk to the teachers, like, okay, you guys understand best practices. Why aren't you doing them? And they'll say, well, my principal wants me to do it this way, even though what you're teaching us at Western is to do it this way. So then we had to start to think about, well, now we need to work with administrators to make sure they understand so they're not asking you to do things that are, we would say, developmentally inappropriate for young children. And then you talk to the administrators and you find out they are telling teachers to do these things because of policies above them that require certain things. And this is the best way they know how to enact those policies. So that started me thinking about the policy piece. And in our community, we have people, groups, nonprofits that work at the policy level for solving problems. And so Isaac is one of those groups. So I was called one day because they were looking at how to get more funding for moms who are pregnant so that we have all the needs that their needs met before the child is even born to make sure that the child starts out ready. And they wanted researchers like myself to come and speak to the community about it because we were going to ask for funding for these programs and to make sure that these policies were in place, that the funding would be for everybody who needs it. So that's how my shift to policy started to happen, that I had to think about the policy implications of my work. And so Isaac was one. Then which came out of Isaac was the model for the Kalamazoo County Ready Fors. So now that we know that pregnant moms need the money, but we also want preschool to be available to everybody in the community, and that's what KC Ready Fors does. So I worked on that as well, and then became a board member as it was developing. And that's been very, very exciting work to see how it's expanded. And then YWCA has a children's center, and when they were experimenting with a new model for a 24-hour childcare center, I was like, oh, I want to be a part of that. 'Cause I think that's a whole nother need we haven't talked about. And so an opening for a board position came on, and they interview you for that board position. People vote on it. And I was telling about my interest in the 24-hour childcare center and how I can help. And I became a board member there. So at the same time, all of these changes are helping my students because they're getting their internships and practice in these high quality programs because of what these nonprofits are doing. So I just saw that it sometimes looks like it's extra work, but it was actually improving my work on campus by having these partnerships in the community. So I'm very grateful that Kalamazoo is a unique place. I don't know if I would have been at a university and other places that it would have been that organic and easy to make all those connections. So I'm very grateful for the opportunities to serve in that way.
Yeah, Kalamazoo is very unique. Just when I talk to other people from other cities or family members, and they're like, you guys have what? You have what? You can go to school for free. There's childcare. There's like all these different resources. It's just like in Kalamazoo. Like, it's not a huge town. It's not too small. But it's like somewhere in the middle where it's like it's growing and it has all this support to make it become like a really great city. But I really liked your point about it seemed like extra work, but it actually helped what you were doing. And I think that's something that for people who aren't involved in boards or different extra work, it is something that you should look into and see like, oh, this is, actually I have these connections now because of this. And now I get to work with these people. And now, we can apply for grants together. And I didn't even know that was a possibility and all that. So I appreciate you lifting that up. So Kalamazoo is home to the Promise, which directly intersects with your focus on equity and opportunity. How do you see the Promise aligning with your projects on readiness, access, and educational equity?
So we all know that when the Promise was launched, that even the kindergartners were excited about it. They didn't even understand what college was, but they just knew that this was an incredible gift. But we knew that we needed to make sure that they were ready. So it doesn't just happen senior year, all of a sudden I'm ready for the Promise, that it starts early. And I think the community understands that here. So that's always like an incentive. So like, because we have the Kalamazoo Promise, we have to make sure kids are ready. So we need funding for X, Y, and Z in the early years. And so that has been so instrumental in having the community buy into supporting early childhood education here in Kalamazoo. Like, it's a no-brainer. But we always can say, they won't be able to take advantage of the Promise if, we lose them before they get there. And so our work in the early L is very important. We see that we're an important piece of the pathway for the Promise. There's been some talk about how can some of the donors for the Promise pour more money into maybe universal childcare. And I think there's some murmurs about, what that might look like. And if a plan is developed, that might be a possibility. I see that might be the future as we start to see what impacts success with the Promise.
Yeah. I know one person that we need at the table for that. But I think it makes the ask a lot easier to say, well, we've already invested this much into this part of their life. And if you've already put in this much of an investment, why not go back a little bit further so they're ready for it? I think that's really easy it just makes sense. Like,
exactly.
Why not? So your work has always been rooted in service and justice. What personal values guide you when the work gets tough?
Well, there are a couple of things. Well, one is always in abundance. Like, I believe that there are enough resources for everybody. It's just how we distribute them, that some are getting less and some are getting more. And I think it's the work of people who are fortunate to have enough to think about the people who may not have enough. So I feel like I've always been blessed to be one of those people. So, and I don't take that for granted, like that. That's very important. The second is around, I think all problems have a solution, and it's about bringing the right people to the table. And that's been proven over and over again throughout my career. Like, okay, we don't know everything at the university. Let's talk to the people in the field and have their input on how to solve these problems. And then we come up with programs that work. So I really believe in that problems have solutions and collaboration is important. Mm-hmm. So I think those are my big ones, that like putting those things together, then that's like a formula for success.
Mm-hmm. I'm taking notes right now. Looking back, is there a particular project or a student success story that reminds you why you do this work?
Oh, gosh. There's so many students. I taught for 32 years at Western. I have so many students who've gone on to do great things, and I see them in the community all the time. These teachers who are doing amazing things, who don't give up on kids, and who expand their reach beyond the classroom. So I'm always excited, too, when I see that as well, that sometimes people see teaching as a very limited profession, like you're just a teacher in the classroom, but your influence is much greater than that. And when teachers step into their power, and I see them doing these other things, sharing what they've learned about how to be a good teacher to other adjacent programs, and those programs thrive, I get so excited about that. And the same, like I see them, my former students all over Kalamazoo. Some are still in Kalamazoo Public Schools doing great things, but some have branched out to be leaders in other areas. And I think that's kind of the future of teaching, that this next generation won't be like 30-year teachers like when I started the profession. They'll be around for 5 or 10 years, and they're either going to move up and become a leader or some kind of administrator, or move out of the profession and use those talents somewhere else. So we just have to be prepared for that. But I think in some ways that's a good thing. Yeah.
I think like we went through COVID and, global pandemic, and I feel like teachers kind of got left out in what we valued. Like my wife's a nurse, and she, nurses were like, now you better pay us. If you expect us to be in this, difficult situation that's potentially dangerous. And, they have unions and all that sort of stuff. And really, it turned out, they can't afford to do more. And with teachers, it's like, well, you care, so you still show up. And not to say the nurses don't care. I'm not trying to say that. But they rallied together and said, no, this isn't acceptable. And for teachers, it was just kind of like, well, you still got to show up. Teachers still, like, there was no stopping. And I think that's going to carry on now to, well, you got to branch out, go somewhere else if you want to make more money or you want to advance. And it's one of those things where I get worried about it.
Yeah.
Just, I have kids and they're potential teachers, and the people that'll be with them, they might not have that, teacher who's been there 30 years. Right. And on the last episode we recorded, Eric Stewart, he shared this story about one of his teachers. I almost cried when he was talking about it. And I'm just like, my kids might not have any stories like that with their teachers. Anyway, that was side note.
It's going to be different. Yeah, for sure.
So as you reflect on your career and continue your leadership in education and community engagement, what's your vision for equity and opportunity in Kalamazoo's future?
Oh, wow.
Big question.
I know, the big question for a vision. I mean, of course, it's always been in the early childhood community that, 100% of the kids start school ready to learn, and they're born ready to learn. It's just that we as a community have to be ready to support that holistically. And I think, we can do that. Like, everybody always says, all the pieces are here in Kalamazoo, all the resources are here, but we have to do it in ways that, all parents or all families feel comfortable taking advantage of those resources. And I think sometimes we don't do that very well in meeting the specific needs of different families. So if we can really drill down on that and figure out what that unit looks like universally, like, for example, when they RX kids, there's some people like, everybody won't need that money, and you're just giving it to everybody with no strings attached. But that model of making it everybody, that means no one feels like stigmatized if they want to take advantage of that resource. And some of our programming makes you feel like there's something wrong with you if your family needs that, and the hoops that we make them jump through to get that. So once we kind of take that mindset about all of our support programs for families, I think that vision will get to where we need to be.
Yeah, I do think that really helps it's for everyone.
The premise. Yeah,
right, the promise. Yeah. But like even with that, there were times where like when I was in school and I was telling people like, yeah, I got the promise, and like there's some people who are like it's not it's just like a feeling of like, oh, like you got assistance. Like that's kind of the attitude towards it.
Right.
And it's like, it's it's literally for everyone here, but then still other people see it as like, it's a handout. And it bothers me because like, I mean, one, I had it, so I'm a little biased, but to say that like it's a handout or that it's, something you didn't earn or, different things like that, like it's a blessing. Like it's amazing that somebody said, you know what, like here's an opportunity, go ahead and use it if you want.
Right.
Like you don't even have to.
Right.
But I don't know what tangent I'm going on right now, but there is kind of an attitude towards it. And I feel like when you give it to everyone, it kind of balances that attitude of it's like it's only for some people. Well, no, it's not for some people, it's for everybody.
Right.
But even with that, like you go to, if you look at Facebook and you look at the comments section, it's like, oh, people are going to start having babies now out of control, like just crazy stuff. And it's just like, no, like this is a great thing. It is expensive to have children.
Yes.
And like, if you don't have support, especially, it's really helpful. If you don't have family that can watch them, if you don't have family that's coming to baby showers and giving you all kinds of gifts, all that sort of stuff, like it really is helpful. So I think people forget that, or they just don't care. They're like, I didn't get that, so I'm going to hate on it. I'm just upset.
Exactly.
Anyway, I got some strong feelings, I guess. If you could change one thing about the greater Kalamazoo community, what would it be?
Oh, one thing.
Or multiple.
Well, it's always about, I think, we are considered an education community, and I think we believe in that value, but the actions have to follow. And one of the actions would be paying teachers what they're worth. They are severely underpaid. I was at the Kalamazoo Public Schools board meeting last Thursday, and they're going through contract negotiations. And so it hasn't been settled yet. Their contract, they're working without a contract right now. And teachers were getting up telling their stories about how dedicated they are to their profession and how much they love teaching, but they can't pay their bills. I mean, these were teachers. These weren't first-year teachers. There was a teacher there who said she was in her 9th year. She has to get a job every summer. She has to have a job after school, and she also works on the weekends. She sometimes has 3 jobs to pay for everything because the cost of living is increasing, but their wages they're stagnant. So they're falling behind doing a job that they love, and that just should not be. And I think if our community can make sure that we take care of our teachers, I mean, maybe we have no control, across the country, but here that would mean a lot. To put actions behind our words.
Yeah. Especially if it's successful too. If it makes an impact. And then I feel like Kalamazoo is kind of like where you can experiment and see if it works and then take it to other places.
Right.
If you had a golden nugget of wisdom that you would share with someone who's aspiring to follow in your footsteps, what would it be?
Well, so I would have to give this talk to students who were visiting Western and they were thinking about majoring in education. And I would tell them what most successful students in our programs have done is that they've gone out and they've gotten experience working with young children, because that gives them a leg up. So they already know how to interact with young children. They know how to build relationships. And those are such valuable, we call them soft skills. But knowing how to listen, how to work together as a team, all of those sort of things are important. And then they're getting the content knowledge to teach. And then they'll be very successful. They won't struggle. So I just feel like that life experience, when the students need to have time in their schedules to do some of those things, to volunteer, to have some of those internships, to work with people, and that always makes you a better employee long-term on whatever path you want to go on. So just making sure that we have those opportunities for our youth. As you know, because we're working on a blueprint for peace, that we're looking at that. How many slots do we have for youth here so that everybody can have that kind of opportunity? It would be very important. So that would be my advice. Look for those opportunities. You never know who you're going to meet and have a relationship with that will be the person that gives you an opportunity later on that changes your life.
Even board opportunities or volunteering for a committee on a board. You don't have to be part of the board to be on a committee.
Right.
Yeah, that's good stuff. How can individuals or organizations get involved in the work you're doing?
Oh, so I can think about the different boards that I'm on, and we're always looking for support. I think what we're really looking for, we're noticing on all of my boards, the next generation of leaders, we're struggling to find them. So I'm in my late 50s. That group that should be coming up next to take these leadership positions, the 30, 40-year-olds, they're overwhelmed with other work, life, family,
housing
that
crisis.
They're not really stepping into those positions. So I think we have to carve out small, like you said, small pieces, maybe stepping up to the board chair is overwhelming. That, you have to be kind of more settled in your career and have that kind of flexibility. But we are needing that group, that age group to engage at some level. And that would be very helpful for the work that we do.
Do you have any questions for us?
So the promise, I'm very excited about all the new pathways that you all are doing, and the internships are very exciting. But I heard that people went to log on and it was those spots closed right away. Well, it's I heard that on campus, but some people, maybe they were late to, not blaming the promise. Maybe they didn't find out because they heard from a friend who heard from a friend instead of directly going to the meetings and knowing what those deadlines are. But it seems like there's a lot of interest in that.
Yeah.
So how is that going and growing? And
good.
what partners do y'all need to grow if there's a need?
That's a big question. So for Higher Promise, for our internship program, it has grown every single year. I think it started with 48, 50-ish. Then it grew to 75, and now the next goal is 100 for students in the program.
Right.
Right now, you can go on the website and you can register or at least get on the wait list for next summer. So it is open. It's you can access it.
Okay.
I did check it, I think last week, so it's fine. But if that happens where it's closed off or anything, you could just shoot us an email.
Okay, that's good to know.
I think it's you can put the info. I think it's Kalamazoo Promise info.com is our email, our general email. You can always call us. If you go to the website, at the bottom is all the contact info. You can go to my bio and it says contact Jonathan, all that sort of stuff. And you can hit up anybody, honestly.
Okay.
If something like that happens. So yeah.
Yeah, no,
I'm
that's
sorry.
helpful.
I'm sorry that you had
Well, these are
students say
people
that.
who like, oh, it's, school's going to be out in May and it's April 1st, and they're like trying to,
Right.
right. It's like, oh, no.
No, I get that. I was one of those students. I was like, what? They didn't tell us anything about this. And then I actually checked my email.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it is kind of early towards the beginning of the year that we send stuff out. We match the interns with what they want to do.
Yeah.
But if there is something that comes up where somebody's like, oh, I missed it, just email us. We can most likely match you with something.
Okay.
So it's usually never too late. And we do some internships, like not in that summer. Sometimes like if a business is like, I need an intern for, I don't know, in the fall or the winter, we'll figure something out. So it's not just limited to that. It's the big push is for, summer internships while you're going back home, that sort of thing. But there are opportunities other than that.
That's good to know. Yeah, because Western's really pushing experience-driven learning, and it goes back to like my advice, how important that is to get that experience in the field. So this is a wonderful opportunity for Promise students. Yeah,
project-based, making sure like you have something during your internship to put on your resume to say, I led this project and we accomplished X, Y, and Z. Rather than, I worked at this place for a little bit and that's it.
Right. Answering phones and making copies.
Yeah. Not just that. It's way more than that. You actually, it'll make you feel confident in the workforce. So, and business partners can register right now. Okay. And students can get on the wait list.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. I will tell some of my board partners like YWCA if they're not on there already.
Nice. Any other questions?
No, that was my big one. That's related to directly like what I've heard. Most things are pretty clear about what y'all offer and how to take advantage of it. So, yeah, I have 2 Promise grads, and it's been seamless. One who went to K College and is now in graduate school, and my daughter's a senior at Western. So, yeah.
That's
We're very
awesome.
Grateful.
And we love to hear success stories and have people share, and especially like with us celebrating our 20-year anniversary.
Yeah.
That's a big thing too. So it's a lot of great things happening. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm very grateful for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah. And I've enjoyed working with you as well out in the community and what you do. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it.